Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to rather foggy England as Oulton Park plays host to another round of the iRacing Radical Esports Cup. It is round 8, if you can believe it, here of Season 2 in 2025. And we've taken even the chicanes out to bring the speed to Oulton Park up in the northwest of England. It's myself, Ian O'Leary, and Ron Miles alongside you for this Racebot TV broadcast here this afternoon, bringing you all the action from another round of the Radical E Cup. Good to be back alongside you, Ron, for this circuit. What a circuit it is as well. The chicanes shown on this layout not going to be utilised in this particular event. It makes it a very, very fast race circuit indeed as you come around the Cheshire countryside.
Speeds are going to be high. The drafting is going to be such a big factor in this race that we have coming up. I've done plenty of broadcasts of Radical Esports Cup races in the past here at this track, and I can tell you it is going to be a barn burner of a race coming up here. 17 laps of racing action to look forward to from these drivers, and getting into crunch time for this season, only 4 more races left after this week, and you can see a pretty good schedule. Montreal in 1 week's time, VIR, Bathurst, and then Interlagos to bring this season to a close. But honestly, despite it being one of the shorter tracks that we visited thus far this season, Oulton packs a punch.
It absolutely does, and so far, Havo Gullikson has been rather punching the rest of the field. He's been over 100 points over the rest coming into this round of the championship. We're almost two-thirds of the way through now, I should say. George Gonzaga is second, ahead of Heinz Brown by only a few points. Papa Branco quite close as well. Andreas Friedrich has got quite a gap, up to 4th and back to 6th from that 5th place in which he resides. Andre Castro is currently 50 points ahead of Sully Rattanen. Then it's Cazel Larson, Luke Crowley and Christopher Yanakis to round out the top 10, all of whom have got over 1,000 points so far this season. As you know, we broadcast Top Split every evening here from 2100 GMT every Friday evening every week. And so we don't get to see the full story, I guess, but it's clear that Havo Gullikson has been very, very strong so far this season. He's been doing all right in the broadcasted split races, I would say, but not what you'd expect from a championship contender, I suppose. But that's the thing, really, with this series. It's your performance through the week, more than what actually happens here tonight. It's more your performance through the week that has got Havo Gullikson over 100 points ahead of the rest.
Yeah, and he is a reigning champion of the Radical Esports Cup here on iRacing. Won it in Season 1 of 2025. As looking to go back-to-back, the driver who did it before him was James Barry, and he won 3 in a row from Season 2 of 2024 all the way through to the end of 2024 in Season 4. So he's got to look to join some very exclusive company. Looking pretty good for him, but he's still got 5 more weeks to try and seal the deal when it comes to that championship. George Gonzaga certainly looking to maybe get involved in that battle, close up that gap in the coming weeks. But before they think about championship contention, they have to think about this very challenging track with some very challenging conditions. You can see from the fog, relative humidity at 100%. These drivers are basically going to be running through a bowl of soup. And with 19-mile-an-hour winds as well, it is going to be super tough for these rather aero-sensitive SR10s.
Yeah, that is quite strong wind in all fairness. So we'll keep an eye on that over the course of the day as we go racing around here at Oulton Park. It is an early morning race, as most of them have been this season. It's 8:05 in the morning here in Sim. 67 degrees Fahrenheit, by the way, is about 20 degrees Celsius for those of you at other parts of the world other than America, which use the right units. So 20 degrees Celsius-ish on the circuit here, maybe 21 or so on the circuit here for this race. As always, as I say, we broadcast Top Split here every week on a Friday evening, 2100 GMT, and qualifying is just about underway, although to be fair, most of the drivers will have done their lap times right now. As you mentioned, it's a short lap around here, Ron, and very, very high speed as well. Although I was kind of, and you'll know more about this than me, a lot more, I was surprised he's talking so much about the slipstream. Normally, Oulton Park is known as the difficult circuit to overtake, the difficult one to race on, but that's seemingly not the case in these cars.
Oh, in these SR10s, I've been in some of these races, and I can assure you that it is an absolute hornet's nest. Coming at turn number 5 of Shell Oil's corner, through that back straightaway, through turn number 6, skipping out on those chicanes and heading off into Knickerbrook of turn number 7. You are absolutely hauling the mail. I was just following Dennis Kirakopoulos not terribly long ago. He was going about 160 miles an hour at the end of this back straightaway, and it's pretty long. It's long enough for these drivers to have have that game of leapfrog, but when you go for a move, you have to go for it with absolute, pure, unbridled bravery, with no hesitation in your mind. If you're slightly hesitant in going for a move, heading off through that very challenging right-hander, you're going to end up with yourself and your competitor both taking a one-way trip into that outside tire barrier. It's a quick track, this. It's going to be a slipstream fest in these SR10s, but if you take one step wrong, you're going to have a very rough ride into the wall.
And it very much fits into the season that we've been having really since round 3, to be honest. In the last few weeks, I'll just list them off for you in case you've not been here. Mosport, Suzuka, Mugello, Road Atlanta, Phillip Island, Oulton Park. That is a number of very twisty circuits indeed, all back to back to back over the course of the last 6 weeks. That's going to change for the final few weeks as we go to Montreal, VIR and Mount Panorama, where the speeds will be a bit higher before our championship finale at Interlagos, which I think should be almost mandatory for every series, to be honest with you. It's going to be a fantastic final week, as it always is at Interlagos. There is one of the drivers who'll be hoping to win the title as well. George Gonzaga comes into today second place in the points. He's 108 behind Gullickson, but with 5 weeks to go, you'd say it is still possible for him to regain some of that margin. We're not going to really compare the two here tonight because he's the only one out of the top 2 in the championship here tonight.
Now, George Gonzaga yet to grab a win thus far this season in those 2100 GMT broadcasted races like this one here tonight. Harvard Gullickson did a couple of weeks ago, but Gonzaga has yet to do so. He's going to try and get the championship on consistency and consistency alone. And considering that these races can be a bit attrition-packed, being consistent and being up towards the front and not even just being flashy can usually be what helps you win a championship.
Let's have a look at who's put themselves up towards the front then in this race here at Oulton Park. It's Andreas Friedrich, who's 5th in the championship, but on the pole here tonight ahead of Luke Crowley, who's done a brilliant qualifying to get up into 2nd. Lucas Rice is in 3rd, someone we've not seen too much of so far this season. Lasse Sorensen's alongside him. Rafael Branco and James Barry share row 3. George Gonzaga and Dennis Kirikopoulos, the teammates, are on row 4, ahead of Nikos Handke and Leon Hernandez. It's Maren Iani and Gordon Haag who are on row 6. Christopher Travain and Rudolf Nagel are next, ahead of Chris Vetz and Cadell Larson. By the way, Travain, Larson and Nagel to be in the 3 out the bottom 4 is a bit of a surprise from that starting grid, I must say.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shock. Those teammates are usually very quick in these races, maybe struggling with the weather conditions, maybe struggling with this track. Oulton Park is a menace with 12 turns in all, super tough to try and nail down, and that runoff into turn number 1 is going to be super tough as well at the very beginning of this race, but let's get rolling for the 8th round of this championship.
Absolutely looking forward to it. It is another round of the iRacing Radical Esports Cup. This time from Oulton Park. We've stripped out the chicanes, we've upped the speed, and my goodness, this is going to be a fast and furious event here in round 8 of season 2. On the front, getting ready to go. The lights are on, and in a moment they'll be out. Here we go. Finally, the starting sequence will now begin. And Andreas Friedrich will look to launch off that line and leading towards turn number 1, just as he has led throughout qualifying. The green flag waves and we're underway at Oulton Park. It's a great launch from Friedrich, who takes the lead in towards turn number 1. Side by side in the midfield, they're almost teammates hitting each other around where Gonzaga was, and there has been contact in the background meanwhile. Smoke in the background, it's not just the mist you can see in the distance. It is a spun race driver by the looks of things. Brew turn 1 for the leaders though. It's a clean start as they come down the straight in towards turn 4 and Island Bend for the first time.
And it was Harvard Gullickson, the reigning champion and your championship leader as it stands presently in the Radical Esports Cup, getting taken out in that turn 1 incident. I believe he's still out there on the racetrack, but a big setback for the driver into this race with a comfortable championship lead.
Here's the big straight. That's coming out of turn 5 all the way towards Knickerbrook, which is now a fast right-hander. Have a look at this as they go side. Oh, and contact! There looks like there's been contact here for second, and Lasse Sorensen's off the road. It's a hugely high-speed corner, and somehow Lasse Sorensen's ended up off the road here. He's ended up off the road on his own, though. He's not collected anybody else. That was massive at the highest speed corner on this circuit.
And that could have ended an absolute disaster. The fact that didn't turn into a glorified round of bowling hang down into turn number 7 is an absolute pure miracle. Lasse Sorensen, he's not going to be happy about that one bit. May need to load up replay in the not too far off future to see the terrible start that both Lasse Sorensen and Harvard Gullikson had in all of this. Here's a moment with Gullikson hanging into turn number 1. He came to blows.
Oh, just a tiny bit of contact sent him around, and that put him to the back end of the field. I think with Caruso as well, who went around. Now this is Sorensen's one. This is very interested to see this. He just tries to, was he hit there maybe? And my goodness, the fact he hasn't collected anybody there is astonishing. He's gone back to the pit lane, by the way, and that should be the end of his day. But that's a miracle really for everybody else that Sorensen missed everybody. Meanwhile, Luke Crowley's missing. Well, he's down to 4th anyway. Lucas Rice gets past, and so does Rafa Blanco. It's a 1 second advantage, though, for Andres Friedrich. And Blanco, look at him there, flashing the lights. Lucas Rice, get in line, focus, and try and catch the leader here.
And trying to find any way in the book to make some moves on your competitors. I think Luke Crowley has had a moment in the number 19 car, possibly heading off through turn number 7. So it looks like that turn claiming another victim 2 laps in a row. Crowley dropping down to P14, and it looks like he's going to lose out on some more spots in the not too far off future. This is battle for second looking to flare up as Andreas Friedrich looking to try and break away. As we've seen already in this race, as much as you do want to go side by side and can go side by side, it can occasionally end in an absolute disaster, as that's Kettle Larson taking a one-way trip into the gravel trap heading down into turn number 5.
Yeah, that is him down to the back of the field. He's now 21st, by the way, in the field. Leon Hernandez and Christopher Terrain, meanwhile, go side by side down the hill. Terrain's already made up, what's that, 5 places, I think, looking for a 6th now, further on in the background. Still very close, but won't make the move into Island Bend. That is a fast left-hander. Lucas Rice has done the work, though, to get Friedrich back into line here, and he's only 5/10 of a second up the road. The slipstream has not yet been broken, even though Crowley has dropped through the field here and caused some small gaps to open. He's not broken the slipstream anywhere. Lucas Rice is right in that again now, and Rafa Blanco is there as well. James Barry and George Gonzaga not that far away. They are all in contention here, all keeping Andreas Friedrich just in check.
And not letting that driver of the number 3 car get away, not even letting him have a moment of reprieve around this racetrack. You can see these drivers sliding, coming out of the corners. The elevation change around this track is rather massive as well. And I hope you don't take offense to this being a Brit on this broadcast, but it feels like there's 2 distinct kinds of British racetracks. You have the ones built on old RAF bases, which are rather flat. You look at tracks like Silverstone or Thruxton, for instance, but then you have tracks like this. You also have ones like Brands Hatch and not Snetterton, but I'm trying to think of the other track. Cadwell Park was the one that was trying to pop into my mind. It just slipped off my tongue as it came to me. Those 2 different kinds of racetracks. This is one of the hilly ones. These are the tracks where you've got that elevation change, and it really plays both in the favor of these drivers and massively against it. We've seen these drivers slide around coming out of some of these corners with that track falling away from them on corner exit. It's a real tough track to try and master this.
Snetterton was the one you were looking for, by the way, and I don't think that's offensive to British racetracks. I think that's just accurate, to be honest. Lucas Rice, meanwhile, goes down the inside and goes through on Andreas Friedrich, who gets the cutback and comes straight back through on the other side. Is this going to be a theme of the race, maybe, as the leaders battle away? Goodness me, side by side, up the hill and through the right-hander at Druids. Oh, it's outside line for Lucas Rice, and he goes through into the lead ahead of Andreas Friedrich. And Rafa Blanco flashes his lights again, says, what are you doing here? We're losing time to those in behind, who are all gaining on us right now. Blanco is very focused on trying to be as speedy as possible and keep his race time down as much as possible. But right now he's not getting the cooperation from these guys out front who are battling for the lead.
Yeah, they're now working together, and this is music to the ears of the number 17 of Rafa Blanco. We ride on board with him heading down the hill off through turn number 3 right now onto this first of 2 back straightaways. This heading down the Lakeside Straight off into Island Bend of turn number 4. That is so tricky to try and nail down, but these drivers are starting to feel a bit more confident heading off through there. Usually takes about 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 laps to build up the tire temperature, whereby you can assault that corner and take it flat out. Now, though, we're at that point where these drivers can do that without a lot of harm or foul done. If they go a little bit wide, though, they're obviously going to be in a world of trouble, but they mastered it there. It's a 4-car pack now at the front of the field. It's James Berry, the 4-time champion in the past year in the Radical Esports Cup. It's looking to catch up as well as Rafa Blanco and Andres Friedrich battling tooth and nail, heading down into turn number 10 of Druids, and it looks like that's going to be Blanco getting the move done to slip his way up to second.
And the bottom of your screen, it's the battle for 7th place. Nikos Handke's just trying to get away from that, but it's the second group effectively on the road. Bit of defending again from Marinini by the looks of things on the inside, and a little look from Berend by the looks of things in the 2-car. It is side by side down on the bottom of your screen right now. Goodness me, it's all going on out there at the moment. 5 drivers up the front of the field, and in the battle, by the way, for 6th position, there's 9 of them involved. Maybe more. There might well be more involved, but it's a very, very big group battling away for 6th position effectively in that second group. And well, this is going to be the theme of the rest of the race. We're already just about 1/3 distance.
Yeah, these races can go by in the blink of an eye with the amount of action that goes on around here, and we've certainly seen that get put on full display thus far. Looking at the front of the field, it is a vacuum sealed together pack, but here's a driver that I have my eyes on. It's James Berry in the number 5 car, currently slotted in 4th. He's got his teammate of Andres Friedrich right in front. Those 2 drivers are veterans of this series. Andres Friedrich has been doing these races for a couple of years at this point, but he's always ran into some sort of difficulties in these races. It's never a straightforward one for Andres Friedrich, probably trying to just give us a lot of action when it comes to just him and him alone when it comes to some of these races. But as it stands presently, was running solid, now he's running in 3rd. Still a good spot, but at the same time, I think he's feeling a lot of pressure from his teammate of James Berry. And also look at George Gonzaga right behind. Those 3 cars running nose to tail to nose to tail. They are all teammates for Inert Racing, and we may end up seeing potentially some teamwork there. Whether or not Andres Friedrich's going to say, you know what, I don't really have the pace contend. I'm going to let my teammates of James Berry and George Gonzaga go by so I can kind of dip back behind and let those 2 race and maybe grab the win for the team. We may end up seeing a little bit of teamwork play out with those 3 racers.
Yeah, it's not an unreasonable claim, I think, to make. We'll see whether those guys try and just work around that a little bit to try and keep Lucas Rice in the game here. He's 8 tenths away at the moment, ahead of Blanco. This is looking very, very good right now for Lucas Rice. I've got to say, Travain on the bottom of your screen in the meantime is trying to get 6th place in towards Nickerbrook, and he's going to get it as well. He's not been run around the outside there by Nikos Handke by the looks of it. Kyriakopoulos is next in line as well, by the way, and Goodenhage is looking pretty racy. Oh, and he looked to the right there as well. He realised quickly there was going to be no space there. This is a huge group for 6th place, by the way, and Christopher Travain is now at the front of it after making nearly 10 places up in 7 laps.
Drivers already on the hard charge, proving that despite the fact this track is as tight, twisty, technical as it is, he can still get some moves done as we continue to see these racers go side by side, heading off to the 1st sector. That's a fight of the ages with Handke and Kyriakopoulos. That's going to be the number 20 of Nikos Handke getting that move done to jump his way up into P7. Now Kyriakopoulos gonna fight back on the inside through turn number 3 of Cascades. Tricky on the overrun there. If you run a little bit wide, you're gonna pick up a slowdown, which will be very detrimental heading down that back straightaway. You can see some of the other inert cars. I believe that is Myron Ianni right in tow. And look at the number 2 car of Baron. He was involved in that incident between himself and your championship leader coming into this race of Harvard Gullickson. Currently finds stuff in P9, just got moved on Gordon Haug, as Haug actually dropping behind Myron Ianni as well.
Yeah, that was a bit self-inflicted there. Hug just went wide through turn 5, and he's got 10th back at least, but that was a bit self-inflicted. He's got wide again there, and this is self-inflicted pain now for Gordon Haug as Marinini goes through. Oh, and Noglu didn't think he was going to get the room there. He almost slammed on the brakes as he saw that gap closing. If he had kept his foot in it, might have been all right, but hindsight's a wonderful thing, and Rudolf Nagel would have been hoping there that he could have used some, because if he'd have just kept his foot in it, he might have been through there. He has another look down the inside, almost out of frustration into the final corner. That's not going to work, and Leon Hernandez and Heinz Braun are going to be close in behind, ready to pounce as well. There's some big names down towards the bottom end of this field, by the way, after a very mixed up qualifying. As you saw in our grid lineup, only 16 drivers actually set times. A whopping 7 drivers, nearly a third of the field, didn't get a lap time in at all. And it's setting up situations like this, where there's drivers out of position all over the place.
And what do you say the chances are, Ewan, that what we saw and all that is, oh, you can see contact being made involving Harvard Gullickson heading right towards the mid-sector of the track. That, I believe, was heading down into turn number 10 of Druids, getting a pretty big bump, and that's going to really screw up a race that was already pretty bad, going from bad to worse. He currently finds himself down at 20th. But getting back to that point you raised, talking about not a lot of drivers setting times in that qualifying session earlier on, what do you say the chances are that those drivers were out there on track for that solo 8-minute long 2-lap qualifying session, and they just kept picking up off tracks and into the points, and they couldn't actually set in a clean time? I've seen that happen before, which could be part of the reason why we have seen some drivers cut their way through the field like a hot knife through butter, but I would not rule it out at all at this very tough racetrack.
Yeah, I would say that is the majority of those 7 did try and qualify but couldn't. Meanwhile, I've just seen Leon Hernandez drop another few places. He's now down 10, by the way, after qualifying inside the top 10. He is now down in 20th place, which is a long way down for him, unfortunately. So many movers and shakers on the left-hand side of your screen because of the racing we've seen so far. In the meantime, George Gonzaga is just being dropped from this front group now. Just doesn't look like he's got the speed, really, to stay with the front drivers. Blanco, Friedrich and Barry trying to chase Lucas Rise at the moment, but that 6 car, for now, looks like it's got the speed here, and if he can keep them at this arm's distance, if you like, then, well, he might well just keep this margin all the way to the very end.
It's looking good for a lot of drivers up and down this field. I gotta say, when it comes to these races at Oulton Park, you can never really nail down who the winner is going to be until basically the second half of the final lap. You can't even say just the final lap. It can change with a blink of an eye. With these drivers still vacuum sealed together, one small little mistake around this track could be a detriment, and these track conditions are tough. I said this right towards the top end of this show that the wind was howling. It's still pretty high at about 18 miles an hour. Not as quick as these race cars, but I think if the wind was going at about 150 miles an hour, we'd probably have some bigger issues on our hands than just handling. Track temperature is currently about 69 degrees with relative humidity still in 100% territory, so it's real tough for these tires. This track, it's not wet. These cars do not have rain compatibility. However, if they did, this track would be absolutely soaked, and even though there is not rain compatibility in this Radical SR10, at least yet on iRacing, it's basically, but I feel like these drivers are running on slip and slide.
Yeah, still not quite available for these cars, and the conditions actually haven't fluctuated very much at all so far this season, and will continue not to, really, in terms of track conditions. Side by side, oh, meanwhile, between the teammates for third, that's cost them a lot of time. Friedrich and Barry there fighting over third place, and you can understand that, but, well, they have lost a second in doing so. Have we just seen the podium settled there as James Barry gets ahead of Andreas Friedrich, and Blanco and Rise as a result get 1 second margins each?
If it is the podium settled for James Barry, that would be a very promising result for him, despite the fact he won 3 championships in a row from Season 2 of 2024 through to Season 4. Hasn't really had the same luck thus far here in Season 2 of 2025. He has struggled in that number 5 car, and considering some of the performances I have seen come out of that British driver over my time covering him here on the iRacing platform, it's a little bit alien of me to say that. He's been struggling as of recent this season, but he's looking to turn things around and at least hit Season 3 of 2025 with a bit of momentum, doing well at this track in the UK. And you can see that move around the outside, heading off through turn number 7, full commitment. As much as we thought the teammates were maybe going to give themselves a little bit of concession, they're still there to race, and Andreas Friedrich certainly wants to hold on to that final podium spot. He did not give that up.
No, and Barry is going to have a battle on his hands to the end, you would imagine. Meanwhile, Nikos Hanke has just lost those couple of places to Christopher Tremaine, and also Guillaume Perrand as well. And Siegfried 7th. It's now given the chance to Marinini as this race just starts to quiet out a little bit, especially at the front of the field. It's time to start looking in the midfield as we are doing here. Nagel, Braun and Yanakis are also quite close for 11th position as we follow Ian here through Druids, looking for a move maybe at the final corner, but no, he'll be on the outside there. He won't be able to get through. This is more defending for Nikos Anker, who has been defending this whole race.
And it is still going to be a tooth and nail battle between the driver of the number 20 and the driver of the number 11 between now and the checkered flag. You can see Barron in the 2 car just barely there in the shot, heading down into turn number 3 right now. Don't really think these 2 drivers have any aspirations to catch up to him to jump their way up into the top 7, but they will hold on to their spots inside the top 10. And Gordon Haug, who we haven't really seen too much this season in the number 21 car, actually been quite a long time since I've seen him, period, in these Radical SR10 2100 GMT broadcasted races here on the iRacing platform. It's looking pretty all right for a series return, currently rounding at your top 10, as that's Leon Hernandez. Oh, he hit the wall anyways. I thought he was going to save it. He did for a few moments, but still ends up tapping the wall after a sideways snap out of Knickerbrook.
It's just a few laps to go, that one. He's still going, but that dropped him down to 20th place. This is James Barry getting closer to Rafa Blanco, so he's clearly got good speed here, James Barry, but he doesn't have the qualifying position, I don't think, to challenge for the race win. In any case, he might well run out of laps to even challenge for 2nd place, because there are only 4 laps to go, even as we cross the line now. Even though it's a short circuit, it's a very, very fast one. The laps are ticking by very quickly, and James Barry's running out of time.
Yeah, probably just not going to be enough for James Barry to try and grab his first win of this season. A season which has seen a lot of different winners up to this point. Looking through some of the winners we've had in the first 7 races, we've had the likes of Andre Castro, who's won 4, including 2 in a row coming into this race. Not sure he's out there on the racetrack here today, which is a bit of a disappointment after a pretty brilliant performance at Phillip Island, a track which you can test this or not, even as to whether or not it needs to get smacked upside the head for this comparison. They seem vaguely similar in an odd way, Oulton Park and Phillip Island. They're not the same track. They're pretty much on 2 opposite sides of the globe, but they do have the same sort of vibe to them. Some long flat-out blasts with some pretty quick corners and some sharp ones there as well.
I think the sort of racing you see around them is certainly similar in these type of cars. Recently saw a Super Formula Lights race there as well at Phillip Island, that was raced pretty similar to what these cars do. A lot of draft, even though there are quite a lot of slipstreaming opportunities at Phillip Island, even though there are a lot of corners. I think this circuit without the chicanes, then maybe that comparison does stand up a little bit more than certainly the version with. I mean, the chicanes change so much about Oulton Park when you actually add them in. I'm kind of pleased we haven't got them in, to be honest, this week in this series. And I know it has been a thing in the past as well, not to have them in the series. I think it's probably a good thing, really. It gives you a great overtaking chance at the end of that long straight in towards Knickerbrook. But it's a very fast corner as well. It's a very committed corner when you're driving on your own. So we'll see how many more times in the last 3 laps we're going to see it used. But Knickerbrook has been made, because of the reduced chicanes, been made into a very exciting, fast right-hander that also serves an overtaking opportunity perhaps for James Barry as well.
Yeah, will he be able to get this move done? Will he risk it to try and get that move done? Remains to be determined. But as we approach the end of this race, here's a driver who has a very hard charge. This is Christopher Tavarin, who's been pretty quick as of recent weeks here in the Radical Esports Cup. He had to grab a win up to this point, but he has been very quick. That performance a couple of weeks ago that he had at Road Atlanta still sticking out in my head. Was in contention for the race win there, but wasn't able to seal the deal. As that's Lucas Reese, he's spun, heading down to turn 11.
Can you believe it? The leader, long-time leader, Lucas Rice has spun at the final corner here, and suddenly the battle for the race leads on. Here on the penultimate lap, this is extraordinary stuff as Lucas Rice spins not only out of the race lead, but also out of a podium place as well. James Barry can see the glory up ahead of him now as he challenges Rafa Blanco. There's all sorts of defending as well, just before Island Bend. Is he going to go around the outside through here, this left-hander? It'd be spectacular if he could, side by side. Oh my word, in towards turn 5. He might have this, and he does. James Barry, he gets the lead on this penultimate lap of the race, and there's so nearly contact. Rafa Blanco's going to challenge him again. Coming on the way down towards Knickerbrook, there's a lap car as well in the way. What are they going to do? How are they going to get out of the way of this one? They're going to be 3 wide. Oh, goodness me. Down the back straight. It's a big squeeze down there. In towards Knickerbrook. Blanco on the outside. Surely he can't win that bleed back through there. No, he can't. And James Barry has got the lead here with just 1 lap to go at Oulton Park.
And Packy Caruso doing everything that he could to try and get out of harm's way in that lapped car, but it still affected that result nonetheless. You could see that moment for Lucas Reese. I think he may have gotten tripped up slightly with that lapped car of Caruso heading down into turn number 11. That's such a tricky corner to try and nail down, but the racing is still not over at the front.
Barry just went wide as well. Rice seemed to be distracted by the lap car there, and he clipped the grass on the way towards the final corner. And James Barry now distracts himself, and he gets passed by Blanco. Blanco leads through turn 1. Now Barry's only got 1 lap to try and get this lead back again now.
And if he's going to try and get it done, there's 2 opportunities. It's Shell Oil's corner, the hairpin at turn number 5, where he went for that move last time by, or turn 7 of Knickerbrook. If he goes for the move heading off into there's no counter if you are Rafa Blanco. This is going to be a dogfight between these 2 competitors, and you can see them separated by a matter of inches coming through turn number 5 for the final time. But this is a long flat-out blast. This is going to make or break this race.
It is absolutely going to make or break the result here. Oh, Blanco defends, and there's contact. There was all. These 2 at each other's throats now on the way towards Knickerbrook. It's Barry on the outside line. Is he going to get the space here? He won't. And he's going to have to do it somewhere special here in the final couple of corners. There's still draft to be had, though. Don't forget. In towards Druids, maybe. Not here. Is there going to be any space at the final corner, maybe, for James Barry? He's got a better line. Blanco goes a bit wide. Barry's going to have a chance here. Inside or outside. He might not have much choice. It's outside. In towards the final turn. It's going to be absolutely door-to-door to the line, but no. Rafa Blanco holds on the inside line and somehow wins this race here at Oulton Park by just 1/10.5 over James Barry, who's joined on the podium by his teammate Andres Friedrich, and Lucas Rice, who led most of this race, is not even going to finish in the top 5. He finishes behind George Gonzaga in 6th position.
Holy cow, what a race here at Oulton Park. We thought it was going to be Lucas Rises for the taking. That 6th car was dominant. He had a 2-second lead, I think, when he had that spin heading down into the second to last corner. But after that, it absolutely kicked off, and the battle that we thought that was going to be for the final podium spot ended up being for the race win. Credit where credit is due to James Barry. He threw the kitchen sink at it, but Rafa Blanco was able to dodge every single punch that was thrown his way to grab his first win of this season. Incredible stuff for the Uruguayan driver.
Fantastic race and a fantastic finish, but Rafa Blanco comes out on top with it, just ahead of James Barry. 1.4 seconds back for Andres Friedrich in the end, the pole sitter. He was a bit at sea during the race, but he's clearly got good speed. Christopher Terrain finished 4th, and what a performance from him, by the way, to come through the field. He could have won if he'd qualified better. George Gonzaga finished in the top 5 as well, ahead of Lucas Rice outside the top 5 after leading for most of the race. Guillaume Parent, Nico Sanka, Marinini and Gordon Haag round out the top 10. Uko by 8 seconds, by the way. Rudolf Nagel finished 11th in the end ahead of Dennis Kirkopoulos. Then it was Mika Henrik Hulkonen. Cadell Larson recovered from that relatively early spin in towards turn 1, was it? I can't remember. No, turn 5, sorry. That's finished 14th. Albert Gullickson, the championship leader, down in 15th, which is not great news for him. Sebastian Lipp behind him as well. He couldn't get a lap in qualifying, same as Gullickson. Chris Vetch finished in 17th place in the end, that was. Christopher Yanakis was in 18th. Must have had a penalty based on those timing things, and same for Heinz Brunn there. Leon Hernandez, we saw him have his crash out of Knickerbrook. Packy Caruso was 1 lap down, as we saw, relatively late on was lapped. Luke Raleigh ran at 2nd at one stage in that race, but finished 9 laps down. Lasse Sorensen finished 15 laps down after crashing early on in that race. Well, I know I haven't been here for a couple of weeks, Ron, but that is a absolutely fantastic race, and maybe one of the best we've seen this season. A late lead change, a last lap battle for the lead as well between Blanco and Barry. That was absolutely fantastic.
And absolute commiserations to Lucas Reese, who had this race in the bag, but in the span of a couple of moments, in the span of a couple of laps, he went from hero to zero. And even towards the end, he had a pretty big sideways snap heading into the second to last corner of Lodge Bend. And after that, he dropped all the way down to sixth, a heartbreaker for Reese, but a thriller at the front. Blanco and Barry, both those drivers put on an incredible test of skill. They started in fifth and sixth. They end up in first and second. Rafa Blanco grabbing his first win in spectacular fashion here at Oulton Park. What a barn burner of a race.
Well, if that doesn't make you tune in next week, then I don't know what will. We'll be back 2100 GMT again for the Montreal round of the Radical Esports Cup. And what a round it is going to be as well. Not 10:30 p.m. ET. It's going to be at 1200 GMT, 2100 GMT rather. Same time, same place as you found this broadcast here this week. A big thanks to everyone who has tuned in this week to a fantastic show here at Oulton Park. This has been the iRacing Radical Esports Cup here in round number 8. I've been Neil O'Leary alongside Ron Mounds, and Romero Augustin Cisneros being behind the cameras. We'll be back here at Montreal in 1 week's time for a bit of a draft fest. I'm sure it's going to be. It's goodbye for Oulton Park, and we'll see you again in 7 days' time.